Thanks so much to Wild Grain for sponsoring today's video. This week, we're taking things a little bit slower. It's been so beautiful lately, and the weather has been not too hot. It's kind of been mild still, and we're getting a lot of rain, and so everything is lush and beautiful in the garden. And we've also been having a lot of cozy days lately, where in the daytime, it'll be sunny and warm, and then as we go into the evening around dinner time, it will start raining. So I thought this week it would be fun to share with you some summer Dutch oven meals that I've been making to feed my hungry family. So these are some of my favorite one-pot meals that you can make in a Dutch oven. And even though it's summer, I still find that my family's hungry. I have 4 kids that like to eat and my husband who loves to eat. And even though it's summer and we like lighter foods, especially around breakfast and lunch, dinner, we still like a nice, hearty, and comforting meal. Today, I thought I would share with you a couple of the recipes I've been making a lot of lately that we are just craving along with the weather. So it's not only a time of year to cook seasonally, but I feel like it's always the time of year to cook along with the weather. But then whenever it's rainy, a little bit cooler, you just want to cozy up inside with a blanket and have something comforting for dinner. So I have some fantastic recipes to share with you today. One that we just cannot get enough of, and we're gonna cook that right now. And I'm also going to be chatting a little bit about how I feed my hungry family, not just these beautiful, delicious recipes I'm making today, but also just in general, how I keep them fed and how meals kind of work around our household, especially with kids. And if you have picky eaters, I definitely do have some picky eaters. And so a lot of times I will have kids who will not eat the dinner I'm making, but I have some tips for how I handle that so that you're not stressed out. Because being a mom and being a homemaker and a cook can be stressful when you have picky eaters in your home. Eventually, you'll learn to just have patience with it and find some ways that really help work that out.
Look! This is the first time I've ever harvested cutting celery. Definitely going to be growing this some more. Get a few stalks for tonight's meal. Beautiful.
This cutting celery has been one of my favorite things that I've ever grown. This is the first year that I've grown it, and it is so helpful to have celery in the garden. Not only could you snack on it with things like peanut butter and raisins, but I cook with things like onions and garlic and carrots and celery so often that having this big, beautiful celery that is super crunchy and a little bit thinner and less kind of stocky than normal celery has been amazing. And I love putting all the celery tops in the soup too, because those have flavor, and I use them normally on regular celery too, but the homegrown version is just amazing. So today I'm starting by making a soup, but it's actually a chowder, which if you're like me, I love a summer chowder. I'm an East Coast girl and we live on the East Coast, so there's something about a chowder that still feels very summery to me. So I'm going to show you one of my favorite chowders. You've probably never made it before, and it is one of the best foods I've ever made. This is one of our favorites. My kids ask for it now almost weekly since I've started making it, and it is so good. So I have a big Dutch oven going and I'm putting in all my veggies. I've got potatoes, carrots, onions, and celery, and then I'm adding that into my Dutch oven with butter. And I'm adding some extra butter because we're going to have a roux to make once these veggies are nice and tender. I'm going to put those on the heat and let them cook for a good 10, 15, sometimes I'll even let it go a little bit longer than 15 minutes until all those veggies are nice and softened. You'll season it with salt and pepper. I love a good amount of pepper in chowders just because it's so creamy. So anytime I have something cream based like an Alfredo or a creamy soup, I love to add just a little bit more black pepper. I feel like you could make this base for so many soups and spin it into different versions, whether you're using chicken or you're using seafood or just veggies. It is such a great start to a soup. So I'm going to make a seafood chowder today. So normally you would make probably just like a clam chowder because that's pretty simple to make, but making it into a seafood chowder with multiple like frozen seafoods and canned wild caught clams are so delicious. You're not going to believe how easy it is to make something so special. And if your family doesn't like seafood, don't worry, I have a chicken dish coming next. For this chowder, you can definitely stop and just use cans of clams. That's gonna be really easy. It's gonna be more economical to do it that way. But if you want the full seafood experience as if you were at the best seafood restaurant, I highly recommend using some frozen shrimp. These are wild caught, and then they're peeled, deveined, tail off, and they're a pretty good size. They're the same size as these scallops over here. So I just have some frozen scallops, and I try to get my shrimp to be around the same size as those scallops so they cook at really similar times. And the combination of the clams with the clam juice along with the scallops and the shrimp, it is just one of the most incredible soups I've ever had, one of the most incredible soups my kids have ever had, and even my pickiest eater in the whole house loves this soup and actually said it was his favorite thing that I've made. So that is incredible because you wouldn't think that was seafood. Normally people are picky about it, but if you like seafood even at all, you need to try this soup because it is absolutely fabulous. The taste, the texture, it is comfort in a bowl, and you're getting all of those nutrients from the shellfish and tons of veggies packed into this, and it is just one of the most incredible chowders. I crave this kind of stuff all the time, and it is impossible pretty much to find unless you go all the way to the East Coast. So if you're inland, stuff like this is really hard to find, but if you make it yourself, it is absolutely incredible, and that's why I'm so excited to share this recipe with you. I really hope you give it a try. So I'm gonna have my frozen scallops and my frozen shrimp, and I'm gonna put those in later, right at the last minute, and you just let those cook through until the shrimp are perfectly nice and light pink and the scallops are just cooked through. And the flavor that these shrimp and scallops release into that brothy chowder is just, you can't get it any other way. So you could do it either just scallops, or you could do it just shrimp, or you could do it just clams. And either way, the combination of the three is just amazing. But I highly recommend trying it out this way first because it's incredible. So after those veggies get nice and softened, we already have that butter in there. So I'm adding in some of my kamut flour and making a roux that kind of coats those veggies. And then we'll go ahead and let that simmer. So I just added in all the juice from the clams that were in the can, and then I'm also adding in some homemade chicken stock, and we're gonna let that simmer and just get nice and tender. That is like the key to a good chowder. And so I'll just let that sit on the stove. You don't really even have to babysit it much. It can just simmer away for a little while, and then after it's simmered, you can see it's thickened into this beautiful texture. And I'm adding in a mixture of whole milk and heavy cream, and I feel like in my family, anything that has whole milk and heavy cream, my family already is gonna like, but this soup just takes it up a notch because when you add in all of those different seafoods, the flavor that the broth takes on is just unlike anything else. So I'm using my scallops and shrimp, and I can find these frozen at almost any grocery store. I know Walmart has shrimp and scallops, and I know Aldi has shrimp. I can't remember if they have scallops, but you can find them and buy them frozen since it's more economical that way. And you could even use just half the bag, and it goes so far in this soup. I want to tell you more about today's video sponsor, Wild Grain. I've been using Wild Grain for a good while now, and they are the first ever Bake from Frozen subscription box. Sourdough bread, artisanal pastries, it's basically your own good quality bakery who ships right to your door. So I love them because they have different kinds of boxes to where you can get it to fit your family's needs. So whether you're gluten-free, plant-based, or you just want the classic box like what we do, they have all the things that my family loves. They have good quality butter, they have sourdough bread. If I run out of time, I can grab the sourdough bread out of my freezer, and it goes from freezer to the table in under 25 minutes, which is perfect for busy summer days. And not only is it fresh, but you can also use it as an ingredient. So if you want to make something, say like a strata, but you need some sourdough bread, you can pull this out and use it as your fresh sourdough bread. We're always having new or seasonal, limited edition things that you can add to your box and fully customize it. I just baked up some of their beautiful ciabatta, and it always has amazing flavor and texture.
So if you want to try out Wild Green too, just go to wildgreen.com/healthyelizabeth30 and you can use code healthyelizabeth30 to get $30 off your first box. Plus you'll get free croissants for life.
So once you add all of that delicious seafood into the chowder, you just let it cook for a few more minutes until the shrimp and the scallops are literally perfectly cooked. And then I like to run out to the garden, grab a few fresh herbs, just like chives, and sprinkle that on top and have it with a little bit of crusty bread on the side. And I promise you, no one in my house is picky about this soup. This is one of our absolute favorites, but a really easy swap is you could pull out the seafood or just do clams and make it a delicious potato soup. So I love having recipes like this in my arsenal because you can switch it up so many different ways, but the flavor and the base of this soup are so good and cozy and comforting for these summer days.
So I made the seafood chowder and we're gonna absolutely devour that. Actually, the first time I made that, we kept eating it for every meal after that, so I made a huge batch. And even last time, I think I ate it for breakfast the day after I made it because it is so good. So we'll devour that for a few different meals, but tomorrow we're gonna have a really busy day. We're gonna be gone most of the day, and anytime I'm out of the house for a long time, it makes it really tricky to get dinner on the table. So I'm gonna do it today. That way tomorrow I can just pull it out of the fridge and reheat it in the oven and we'll be good to go. So I'm doing a little bit of pasture-raised chicken thighs, and I thought I had gotten out 2 packages of chicken thighs, but apparently I got 1 chicken thigh and 1 chicken breast package out. So we're gonna pretend these are chicken thighs because I wanted to do that. I think they would taste really good that way. And I wanna use a little bit of this, which I found the other day. I thought it would be fun to put in this dish, but it's organic whole wheat orzo. So I'm gonna use some of this and make a 1-pot chicken and orzo dish that's super easy, but I love that you can throw it together and it tastes like you cooked all day long.
This dish is definitely picky eater friendly. There's nothing like chicken and a little bit of pasta or even rice, because orzo reminds me of that. But there's something just about having a big pot of slow cooked chicken with something in it that is super comforting and pretty much anybody would like. So I'm taking some leeks and I like to wash those really well. So I actually use my salad spinner for this, and I love using leeks this time of year just because they're in season, but you could definitely swap those just for onions. But I love to wash those in a little bit of water. I break them up with my fingers to make sure all of that sand gets out. Then I'll give them a really good rinse. And we're going to be using that and along with celery and carrots. So more of those same things that I use all the time. And I love just having stuff like this on hand, all those sorts of veggies, because you can make so many different dishes. And if you cook down carrots and celery, pretty much anyone will like that because it's just such a neutral and cozy homemade flavor, I guess you could say. And just creating some sort of cozy meal that you can have for dinner, even if you have picky eaters in your house, if you have kids that are very hungry, being able to put together a big pot of something or something to put in the oven is always so helpful. What I like to do is make a dinner like this all the time, as often as I can, and I'll serve that, but sometimes it will be something that one of my kids doesn't enjoy. And now that I've been a mom for over 10 years, I've come to realize not to stress about when somebody doesn't want to eat something that I've made. It could be the best dish I've ever made, but one of my kids may still not like it, and that is perfectly okay. So what I like to do to help with that is keep more things in the fridge, and I don't mean snacks. I truly believe in eating as many whole foods and real foods as I can, and same for my kids. So I prefer it when they snack on dinner from last night or maybe leftovers from lunch or breakfast. And I find that just having those things in the fridge helps so much because then as a mom, I'm not stressed out if 1 or sometimes even 2 of my kids don't want to eat something that night. What's funny is that sometimes they won't want to eat it that night, but then the next day they'll want to eat it for lunch if we have leftovers. So I find that it's just finding that balance and making sure you always have something home cooked and nourishing in your fridge or in your pantry. So I ran out to the garden and I grabbed a medley of herbs for this dish. You want to have plenty of aromatics. So I have my onions and my carrots. I have garlic, more of that cutting celery. And then I also grabbed some fresh thyme and fresh parsley and a little bit of fresh dill. And all of that is growing in my garden. So it makes it super economical. So if you can grow something like herbs, it will save you so much money. There's no waste either because you can preserve all of that. So I tied that up with a little bit of garden twine. That way I can pull it out because sometimes my picky eaters don't like to have chunks of herbs in it. So if you tie it together, I think it's called a bouquet garni or something fancy like that. But if you just tie it together with a little butcher twine, you can pull it right out and they never know it was in there, but the flavor is so good. I'm using some of my skin on chicken thighs and that one chicken breast, and I have that in a pan with avocado oil, and I'm just going to get that skin nice and brown. And in the meantime, I'm also going to preheat my oven because this one we're going to bake off in the oven, which I find is just so easy because you can just put it in and forget about it. I like to do it in my little oven because it doesn't heat up my house, and all I have to do for that is just pull out one of the racks because it's 2 layers in this Breville oven. So I pull out the top one, and then my whole Dutch oven with the lid on fits in there, which is just a game changer if you have an AC that's as old as you are, like I do. I just brown that chicken really well, and we're going to remove that from the pan and leave all those delicious pan drippings. They're just nice and golden brown. You don't want your pan drippings to be too dark or it can start to taste a little bit bitter, but if you leave it nice and light golden brown, that is the perfect base to saute your veggies in. So I'm going to put those all into this Dutch oven and just make sure that they're nice and tender and mix that together really well. Salt and pepper everything. You can also take a bite of one of the carrots or a leek and make sure that you seasoned it right, because after we bake it, we're not really going to touch it anymore. So if you want to make sure everything's nicely seasoned here, even your chicken. And then I'm using some orzo. You can use regular orzo or whole wheat orzo or even gluten-free orzo. So I'm just measuring out some in my measuring cup. I think I used around 3/4 or 1 cup. I'm trying to remember that off the top of my brain, but don't worry, I always have these recipes for you guys. This is truly what I love doing with my life, is just creating recipes for people. I feel like it's so fun to get to hand you guys something from my kitchen that you make in your kitchen and it turns out beautifully for your family. I get so much satisfaction out of that. So now I'm seasoning my veggies with a little more flavor. I have some paprika that I added in. And then lately I've been using saffron in a few things. So I just bought a little bit of it from the grocery store, and it just adds a special flavor that you can't get in many other places. But if you don't want to buy saffron, no big deal. Just do the paprika and you're still going to get that kind of sweet depth of flavor. So I'm going to add my chicken back into all those delicious sauteed veggies and add the chicken drippings too, because don't worry, we're still going to bake it off. It'll be fully cooked. Then we're going to add in some fresh chicken broth and that bouquet of herbs that we made. And we're going to let that cook with the lid on in the oven and slow cook. And then you're going to have a big pot of just the most delicious mouth-watering chicken. And I'll show you when we add the orzo, but it is so easy. It really is a 1-pot dish. And another trick is to always be multitasking in the kitchen. So while I'm making this dinner, I could also be making breakfast or something else too, because it's so simple. But today I was actually making a potluck dish for church, and so I just made that and put it in the fridge for the next day. But this is such a good pasta salad, and I love salads like this any time of year, but especially in summer with all the fresh tomatoes. I love a fresh tomato pasta salad, and I will put this recipe up for you guys. I'll be sharing it on Instagram too, if you want to follow me over there. So once the chicken is fully cooked and everything has had a chance to marry together, that's when I add in the orzo. So you can remove that bouquet of herbs because all the flavor of it is in the sauce, so we don't really need that, and it's easier to pull it out now. And then I'm going to pour in all that orzo, and it's actually just going to kind of sit in that liquid and absorb all of that hot, flavorful broth. So I'll put the lid back on and let that sit just on the counter, and all that orzo will cook right in that pot, and then it's time to serve. This was so delicious. There's not one person in my family that didn't want to eat this. Real food, even if you don't use a lot of ingredients, just tastes so good. There's nothing like a home-cooked meal. I hope you enjoyed coming along for these couple days while I'm just cooking real meals for my family. It's nothing crazy, it's just realistic, real life, and that is what I love sharing with you, is just things that we actually want to eat and that you will too. Thanks for joining me in the kitchen.